Hi, everybody. Mike Handcock here, the chairman of the Circle of Excellence Group. Today, we're going to be talking about creating wealth your way. And so that's an interesting topic. And I sort of toyed with this when Chris asked me what do I want to talk about on the next Global Intelligence Update. And I thought, will I use this topic? And I decided, yes, I will. Now, in saying this is going to be not only about me, this is also going to be about you. Actually, I'm going to stop the share because I want to do this slightly differently. And so we've got a nice group coming in today, so that's fantastic to know. So let's now go back into the share. Oh, more people are coming in. Good grief, there's so many people. Here we go. Oops. Now I've shared the screen with you guys on it. Right. Sorry for people watching. This is what happens when you don't do things properly. You share the wrong slides. Hi, Mel. Lovely to see you here. I just saw your faces. I'm transitioning, panicking with all the technology that I should be used to after being online for nearly 20 years. So let's talk about creating wealth your way. So you are not defined by what you say yes to. You're defined by what you say no to. So in looking at that, what does that mean for anybody out there? So feel free to go to the chat. Tell me what you have here. When you look at this, you're not defined by what you say yes to. You are defined by what you say no to. Whilst we're waiting on people to come to me and tell me what they think that means to them. And if you want to just unmute yourself and speak, that would be great as well. Otherwise, let's jump into the chat and see what you've got. Boy, oh boy, you're not expecting to work so hard so quickly, right? Creating boundaries, Mel. Thank you for that. Philippe says, saying no to projects that don't align with your values or target audience. Very good. Dorby said, keeps focused in the direction you want. Andrea says, establishing parameters on what you want to be and do. What it's really about, and you're all right, of course, but what it's really about is it's about learning what is going to work for you and what is not going to work for you. And so many of us get involved in stuff that's not necessarily going to work for us. Hey, Sam, no is harder than to say yes. Definitely, that's correct as well. So one of the things that I've shared with people for many, many years is 6 points on how to work out what to say yes to and how to work out what to say no to. And we're going to start here today. So I call it the opportunities formula. And this is something now, whenever I get an opportunity or Landi gets an opportunity, we literally just run this formula in our minds. It's sort of part of us now. And for many of you, might want to take a screenshot once I've got the whole formula up. And some of you have heard this before, I know, in passing. We may not have spent any sort of time on it. So today we're going to spend a little bit of time on it. So the first thing is, whenever something new comes your way, you ask yourself this question: does this new thing fit my passion and my purpose? Now, if it doesn't, why would you bother even looking at it? It's just going to take you off in some segue down some side street. So why would you even look at doing that? Number 2 is, can I add value in my natural way? Now that needs describing, right? So I don't think there's a person on this call under 30 years old. Maybe there is. Oh, Matthew might be. So all of us have had significant life experience. And in that life experience, we have worked out things that we naturally do well. Some of you are naturally creative. Some of you are naturally analytical. Some of you are naturally good with spreadsheets. Some of you are naturally good with people. Some of you are naturally good at timeliness. Some of you are not so good with timeliness. It's all of those type of things. So when you look at an opportunity, it's really saying, can I add value in my natural way? And the example that I like to give in this is, when I was a corporate general manager, I learned how to read pivot tables. For those of you that don't know what a pivot table is, you're very lucky. A pivot table is the best way I can describe it. It's like a 3-dimensional spreadsheet. So whereas a normal spreadsheet has columns and rows, this also has depth that sits behind it. So I never want to see another pivot table. In fact, I had to use one recently, which was hilarious because I had to remind myself how to do it. But I really don't want to see them again in my life. So if somebody says, here's a job, it's $1 million a year, but you're going to look at pivot tables all day, I'm going to go, no, thank you very much. So even though I can do it, it's not my natural way. My natural way is to be creative. My natural way is to speak. My natural way is to write. My natural way is to travel and have different experiences. So that's the places that I can add value in my natural way. Number 3, can I leverage the opportunity? And by leveraging it, I mean magnifying it or multiplying it. So many of us enter into things that we literally put ourselves underneath glass ceilings. We can't magnify them and we can't multiply them. Not to any extent anyway. So an example of that might be buying a lawn mowing franchise where you get your suburb and you can mow the lawns there. So can you leverage that? Maybe you can get other people to do it. Maybe if you're the most successful franchisee ever, you can have 10 people working for yourself. So that's a bit of leverage, but it's going to reach a stop at some natural point. And for most people that buy those franchises, it comes down to, I've only got 8 hours in the day. It rains, a day a week wherever I live. And I can't go outside my suburbs. So it's incredibly boxed in. And we as human beings often put ourselves in that box. So this is about opening the potential so that you can leverage this by magnifying or multiplying it. The 4th one is, if it fails, with an E in it, because I wrote this on a train, right? So forgive me. If it fails, is that the French way of spelling fail, believe? If it fails, will it think me? So there are so many stories out there of, people starting businesses with $2, $1, and they're now multi-billionaires, or they sold their business for 100 million or something like that. What you don't hear is the tens of thousands of stories where people started a business with their last $100 and now they're dead broke and they don't have that $100. So there are so many opportunities in the world. Dolph DeRuse, who is Robert Kiyosaki's property mentor, said to me once, the opportunity of a lifetime comes around every day. And I found him to be pretty 100% correct on that. So you don't need to fail at something or set yourself up with massive risk, because if you just wait a little bit, the opportunity that you want with a lot less risk is going to come around. The 5th thing is, does it motivate me? Now, you have to have a measurement for motivation, but I'm not talking about motivate you right now before you've done it, right? I'm talking about, you think about putting yourself in it. Is this something that you want to consistently get up at like 5 in the morning to do? If so, then you're probably going to be pretty motivated about it. Yesterday, we had to catch a train. We set the alarm for 5:30 in the morning. We're excited by doing that. We're excited by the adventure of the day. Still, after doing this for 20 years, we're still excited. So does it motivate you? And the last thing is, does the return inspire you? And the return doesn't have to be financial. The return could be spiritual. It could be metaphysical. It could be just a warm, fuzzy feeling that you get. It could be socially contributing. It's whatever you decide that return is that you're looking for. So whenever somebody comes across an opportunity and says to you, hey, I've got an opportunity for you, this is the formula that you should run by it. Now, if you start to consider for a minute something that you've done in the past that's failed dismally for you, go and look at this formula and ask yourself, did it tick all the boxes? It's unlikely to have ticked all the boxes. In fact, most of the things that we fail at don't tick too many boxes at all. We just think they're good ideas because A, we're experienced and we've got the background in that, and B, we can make a lot of money in it. But then it doesn't work out because it doesn't fit our passion and purpose. We have to go outside our natural way to add value. Maybe there's some leverage restrictions on it. Maybe we put everything into it and that was just a silly thing to do. Maybe after 6 months of doing it, we don't feel like getting out of bed anymore. And maybe the return is money in the bank. You know, there's a lot of billionaires out there that are really unhappy people. So that's what I want you to think about. I encourage you to take this screenshot. I encourage you to write this out because you and I are going to get a lot more opportunities. Our opportunities haven't ceased yet. So whilst I'm just thinking about transitioning to the next slide, if any of you have any comments about this, I would like to hear it. So Matthew says here, seems similar to universities too. For example, Harvard accepts barely 10 to 20% of thousands of applicants and can still be very profitable and build prestige that way as well. Absolutely. So you don't need to take everything on board. So perfect formula. Thank you, Andrea. Something that I think that everybody should use. So I'll take that perfect formula combination here. One of the questions that I get asked often before I move off this is, what if the opportunity I get ticks 5 out of the 6 boxes? Should I go for it? Now, it's a very valid question. The answer that I have is no, but I understand if you still want to go for it. The reason why I say no is because I think you're just going to waste time and involve a lot of your heart and soul in something, and you're not going to see the 6 out of 6 opportunity that's coming next week, next month, or next year. I really think that that's what's going to happen. However, I appreciate that some of you will think that this is good enough and the best opportunity that you've had in a long, long time and will want to go for it. Angela says, double check in as you grow and change. So the answers may change. We also have a willful blindness when excited. Oh, I love that word, a willful blindness. Absolutely. And, you know, you might have a way of going, oh yeah, this definitely fits my passion and purpose. I know it doesn't at the moment, but I'm really going to grow that passion and purpose. So I think I like what you said, Angela. It's really good. Stephanie, lovely to see you here. These all fit according to my decision to say yes 10 years ago. Great. Just proves you're in absolutely the right place. And the fact that you've been doing it for 10 years and that you still love it speaks a lot to choosing the right thing. So one more, and then I'm going to jump into the next slide, right? So Philippe says, opportunities formula. Thank you, Philippe. You put it there so everybody can copy it into the chat. You're so gracious how you do that all the time. So now I want to move into the wealth creation side of this. Now, before I do this, I'm interested to know, and going back to the chat, please, are you interested in seeing more stuff about wealth creation from us at Circle of Excellence? It's typically not what we've given you. In the past, we've given you a lot of business advice, a lot of spiritual, a lot of emotional support, etc. Are you looking for more things in wealth creation? Okay, there's a lot of yeses going up. Okay, that's really interesting. Okay, cool. I'll take that on board and we'll think about that for 2025. It's not going to happen this year, so don't get excited. Okay, so let's move on. So the first step in wealth creation is this question: who are you? And it's such a broad question that I want to give you some parameters around it. And again, you may wish to take a screenshot of this once I've got them all up. But the basis here is that I don't believe that anybody can truly create wealth. And when I'm talking about wealth, I'm not only talking about money in your bank account. I'm talking about living prosperously, building a prosperous community, building something that has prosperity for your family and friends and the people that you love the most. That to me is all within the definition of wealth. It's not just making $1 million, right? Because that's a process. And through that process, some of you who may want to do that might find that the process that I would recommend for you to do that doesn't tick your 6 boxes and therefore possibly won't work for you. But what will work for you is starting to understand who you are. So I just gave you some questions this morning to stimulate this. Firstly, are you a person who has a higher or lower attention to detail? So maybe write that down and give yourself a number next to it. There's no formula here. You're not going to have to be asked to add it up or anything like this. This is for you to really start thinking about who you are. What about your ability to analyze things, to go deep into things and to do the research into something? It's very different to attention to detail. Attention to detail might be you're the sort of person that reads Mike Handcock's book and writes to him and says, Mike, you made 32 grammar mistakes and 17 spelling mistakes, and I'm only into the 3rd chapter. That's not me. I don't have that attention to detail, which is why if you read one of my books, you'll often see spelling and grammar mistakes, even though it's been spell checked and grammar checked 3 times before it goes out. But I do have a very strong ability to analyze something. So my attention to detail is not strong, but my ability to analyze something and to go deep into something is very, very strong. What's yours? Give yourself a rating. What about your desire to lead others? And this is really interesting because I always thought I had a very strong desire to lead others. When I was in corporate, I wanted to be like the CEO, and many of you know I ended up at the level below CEO, and in one way or another, I had 4,500 people reporting to me, about 30 of them that I worked with regularly. But these days, my desire to lead others is about a 1. I just don't want to do it anymore. So I need to take that into consideration of who I am in terms of my wealth creation. Okay, next question. Desire to recruit, train, and develop people. It's a different question. So I still have a desire to recruit, train, and develop people. It's not as strong as what it used to be. It used to be a 10. It's probably a 7 these days, but it's still there. So what's your desire to recruit, train, and develop people? I just saw what you said, Mel. I hope no one has done that to you, Mike. That's pretty cool. Life incidents can be dramatic. Who I was 7 months ago is not who I am today. Absolutely, Angela. You've been on a big journey. Okay, next question. What about your creative ability? How would you rate your creative ability? It's interesting because I would have rated my creative ability at a 9. I think it's about a 7.5 these days. I don't think I'm as creative as what I used to be. I think it's just age and being in patterns and things like that. Whereas I think for me to become creative, I'd have to find a whole new exciting thing to do. Maybe I, retire from Circle of Excellence and start my rock band again. That would get me creative again. Okay, so what's yours? Give yourself a score. And your innovative ability. Now, that's not the same as creative ability. Creative is, thinking of a new idea. Innovation is improving on something that's already there. So creation is creating. Innovation is innovating on something that's already there. So they're just some questions for you to round off who you are. But you really need to have a strong sense of who you are in order to create wealth. If you don't have a strong sense of who you are, you can try as hard as you want to, you're never going to create wealth. And if you do, it's going to slip through your fingers really, really fast. There's other questions. These are not all of them. Are you more social person or are you more task orientated? Are you a spender or are you a procrastinator? There's lots of questions you could ask yourself. I could fill the page full of questions, but these are just some to stimulate your thought here. Now what I want to do is I want to go from this and I want to head into the platform of wealth creation. And I want to tell you that I didn't come up with this. What I'm going to show you next is actually a combination of the original intellectual property of Lisa Dudson, who many of you know, and if you were in Bali Business School, you'll know her. just recently. And Lisa is regularly been the leading financial planner in New Zealand. She's a director of a billion-dollar company. She works with people to make their money every single day of her life. That's what she does. And she came up with the basic concept of this. And then over discussions that I had with her many years ago, we developed this out of it. So let me share it with you. Oh, here's one more. Ability to follow systems. So there's one more question. So are you good at following a system, or are you not good at following a system? By the way, if you're not good at following a system like me, I can follow it to an extent, but I give myself maybe a 6 out of 10. That's why internet marketing doesn't really work for me, because it's just the most boring, regimented system that you've got to tweak all the time. So just not for me. Okay, so let's have a look now at what we're coming up with from Lisa's perspective. So there's Lisa in the top left. I put her in because I want to recognize that this is her intellectual property. And if any of you want to talk to Lisa about it, you can. You'll find her on the Circle of Excellence Facebook group. You can have a chat with her about this. She may or may not charge you a consulting fee. Depends, I guess, what you ask her. So firstly is we all need a foundation for creating wealth. But this foundation is passive of nature, meaning we set it up and we sort of go back and review it on an annual basis or something like that. So of course we need a bank account, right? So that goes without saying, but we probably need different styles of bank accounts, maybe a savings account, maybe a high interest account, maybe a trading account, something like that. We probably need PayPal. We may need a Stripe account. We may need some way of internationally transacting, moving money from one country to another, like Wise or something like that. We need insurances. I know they're boring, right? But we all need life insurance. We all need some type of disability insurance. We all need a house and contents, car insurance, those type of things, right? Critical care insurance. If you want to know the insurances that I think you should have, we can do a whole session on insurance. If you'd like to know about insurance, put it in the chat and I'll do a session on insurance. I may even be able to do that before the end of the year. I know it'll be so well patroned and people will be coming back to it for years, but if you want that, I can tell you what you should and shouldn't have and what to watch out for on it. Why? Because I ran a financial services company. Okay, superannuation. It's called different things in different countries. Retirement planning, if you're in New Zealand, Kiwi Saver. So if you're in America, 401k. So it's those type of things. You need a will. Most of you will have a will, which I think is great because most of you have got a plan for your death, but you probably don't have a plan for your life, which seems strange to me. But anyway, powers of attorney. What happens if you are trapped overseas in another pandemic and can't do things in your own country? What happens if you have an accident and can't get stuff done? Who's your power of attorney? Who's going to agree to feed you chicken soup if you're incapacitated? Who's that person? You probably need limited liability company because by its nature, it limits your liability. And then some of you may need trusts or other sorts of setups. But these are all fundamentally passive of nature, meaning you set them up, you review them from time to time, but it's not actively what you do. And that's why I chose this. It's sort of like your suit of armor. It's what you surround yourself with. But on top of that, there are 3 very active ways to create wealth. The first one of those is business. And this is the way that I have chosen to create wealth. And it's probably the way that many of you have chosen to create wealth, by being in business for yourself. And you're very active in it. You are there trying to make money in it all day and you're trying to do stuff in it all day. It's not the only way to do it. The second way is property. We have some clients that are professional property investors. And that's what they do to make money. Okay. Their job is property investment. We have some other clients and they are professional equity money makers. They make money through equities actively. These are the only 3 ways to make money actively. I'll get into them a little bit further. Let me go to the chat and see what people are saying. Interesting how much we've changed, Andrew, and what shifted over the years. Absolutely. Thank you, Philippe. Who am I? Thank you for putting that up. Matthew reminds me slightly of the Japanese concept of ikigai, where we combine our passion, purpose, and strengths in creation of our ideal business. That's exactly what we all should do. Thank you, Philippe. Ability to follow system. Moira's in for insurance. Me too. I have to confess, I'm quite ignorant when it comes to insurance. Okay, there's not enough of you there to convince me I need to do an insurance thing yet, but we'll see. Okay, so now I want to move this and show you what this means and how to actually drive this bus, because now you've got a vehicle here that you can drive. So each and every one of you need a foundation. By the way, if you're in Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, the UK, or something like that, I literally call this picture the cricket stumps, right? So these are your cricket stumps. And they need to be hammered into a very strong foundation. There's no point being in business if you don't have strong superannuation, strong insurance, and you don't have your company set up well, you haven't protected yourself and all of that sort of thing that you need to. You don't have power of attorneys. If you're in business without that stuff, that's a problem, okay? You need to fix the foundation first. So now that we've got these 3 things, let's look at how they break down. So firstly, we're going to look at the wealth creation stump of business, because business is very different and very unique. And depending on what you know about yourself and who you are, there are many different ways to do business. So if you're a highly creative person and very energetic, you might want to do a startup. You may not want to run a business. So you start it up, sell it. Plenty of people out there. I know one, he's from Chile. He's not a client, based in Singapore. He's done 3 multi-million-dollar startups. Each of them took 2 years, then he sold them. Each of them for more than $1 million, right? You might want to do a business renovation. This is where you buy a business from somebody who's not really run it well, and you renovate it, just like you'd renovate a house. You might want to have a family business so that you can involve your children, your parents, your aunts, your uncles, other people in your family, your cousins. We have a Circle of Excellence member who's got, from Melbourne, Australia, who's got an amazing family business. It's 3 brothers that run the business. He's the Circle of Excellence member. It's really gone gangbusters during the COVID times, and now they operate in every major city around Australia. You could decide to become a franchisor, which means own the umbrella that other people work under. Or you can decide to become a franchisee. That doesn't work for me because I don't do systems very well, right? So because I'm not a systems person, I'm not a franchisee. I could be a franchisor, but I don't like leading people, so I'm not the right franchisor. Okay? And the same goes there for licensee or licensor as well. You could have a job. Guess what? It's a very bona fide way of creating wealth through business is working 9 to 5 and working your way up the ladder. Nothing wrong with it. It's what people do around the world. You could decide to be just a sole trader, a plumber, an electrician, just a business coach or something like that. Somebody who just wants to do your own thing, wants to focus on independence, and that's the way you're going to create wealth. Or you could be a business trader. So I know a couple of business traders. One of them's based in the UK. He runs actually courses on business trading. What's business trading? You go into distressed businesses, you buy them for undervaluation, you fix them up for 6 months, you put them back on the market, and you sell them again. And so I know my ex-business partner did a few of these because he went through this with our friend in the UK. And I think he bought and sold 3 businesses. 2 of them he did okay out of. One of them he really didn't focus on and lost a bit of money. But that's a bona fide way of doing things. You could own everything from a coffee shop to an accountancy practice to a printing company. It doesn't mean you have experience in what the business is. You have experience in how to fix a business. It's something Lundy and I have often thought of doing, is buying a few businesses and trading them. It just take us off our game a little bit, but you need to have that trader mentality to be able to do that. So that's business. Let's look at property. You can become a property developer. That's what we do. Okay, we are also property developers. It is part of our active strategy, but it's a little bit more passive, and I'll talk to you about that in the meantime. But it gives us a chance to be creative, okay, because that suits my creative flair to be a developer. You can buy and hold property. And that means you just do the Warren Buffett thing. You just buy a house, put some tenants in it, and just hold on to it for 10, 20 years. That'll work. You can become a property trader or become a flipper, depending on what language you use in the country that you do. So we have a client and friend. He's based in New Zealand. In the last 10 years, he's created a wealth of $8 million through buying houses, repainting them, fixing up the garden and selling. Not doing any major structural work apart from paint and gardens. $8 million, not bad, right? You can sell people rent to own. So how does that work? It means that you buy a house, you put a tenant in there, then you sell the tenant that house, and they literally pay you off as if you were the bank, to a point whereby they have enough equity to go and refinance that house with the bank. Why would you do that? Because you can make a lot of money doing it. Then you can do sandwich leases. Sandwich lease means this. It means I go and lease a commercial premises for $100,000 a year, and then I re-let it for $120,000 a year. That's a sandwich lease. So I make $20,000 profit for doing nothing, right? So people do that. You can become a renovator. So this is where you go in and you renovate a house, and it's a project for you. It can take 6 months, 12 months, and then you sell it and you make your money on that. Not the same as flipping. Flipping and trading is turned over very quickly. You can become a lease improver. So what does that mean? It means that you buy a building with leases already in it, then you improve that building and you up the leases. So that's something I've been involved in once in the past. You can have some type of fractional ownership in property. So therefore, you might have a building, a resort, or something like that. And those of you that came to Bali Business School know that I was an owner in that resort. I owned 10% of that resort. That was a fractional ownership thing. So in property and in business, each of these things are active, and this is what you do for a living or what you do a lot of. And I'll talk about how active you get soon, but each of these suits a different style of who you are. So you shouldn't become a property developer if you are not at all creative. It's not going to work for you, okay? You shouldn't become a trader or flip unless you've got a very high attention to detail and a system, okay? Mike is not a trader or a flipper, all right, because he doesn't have high attention to detail. It's not really systems orientated. Let's go on to the third one, which is equities. You can do alternative currencies, Bitcoins, and some of the other new currencies. If you ever want to do that stuff, I only have one person in the world that I know that has been in this since the start, based in northern Australia. He's probably a great guy to talk to. Then there's foreign currency exchange, there's futures. You can be a regular share trader. You can trade bonds on the bond markets. You can trade derivatives. You can do stop losses. You can do hedge funds, or you can simply, these days, and it works very well for people, get on the back of algorithms and do what the algorithms tell you to do. Or that's not really that active. That's probably a little bit more passive. But there's some ideas for you, and these are not all of them. I think when Lisa and I built out the original list, we came out with around about 30 things in each of these cricket stumps that you can do depending on who you are. So let me go to the chat. I've seen a lot of people in the chat. So let's just see here. I'm in business and equity. I guess property comes later. Yeah, but you don't have to be active in everything, right? Andrea, I was part of a team in New Zealand who would buy and sell businesses. Need to have a good team. Absolutely. Rent to own. We did a couple of those when the market was distressed. Very good. Tony Knight, not sure who you talk. I know Tony very well, but I'm not sure what you're talking to him in relation to, Moira. Okay. So here's the thing, is all of us must have our passive stuff in order before we try and get ridiculously active, or else we're doing things on a base that's not solid. Then one of us either likes business, property, or equities more than the other. And for many years before you knew me as the Mike you knew me, I was in the property business. I owned a property investment company, and I owned a building company, a construction company. So I was very much a developer, and I also sold property investments. So that's very much still in the development creation space, which really suited my personality, and I really enjoyed it. Okay. Never been into equities. All of my equity stuff is in superannuation and what they call managed funds. That's the only place I don't do any of these active equity stuff at all. Not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just telling you it doesn't suit me, because I also have a lack of attention to detail. So I'm not somebody who's going to look at the markets every few hours. And I remember the one time I tried it, which was many years ago now, I put an app on my phone to tell me when a stock had hit a certain point, and at that point I would sell it. But every time it hit that point, I would be like in a cafe with my friends or something. I go, oh, I'll get to that later. By the time I got to it later, I'd lost my money. So it's like, well, it didn't work. So I would suggest that you choose one stream, business, property, or equities, and you go very deep in that from an active viewpoint. Then I would also suggest that from that active viewpoint, you choose one of the laterals in this matrix. So if you're in business, you're not a franchisor and a startup person. That's not going to work, right? Choose one. If you're in property, you don't buy and hold and do sandwich leases. Probably not going to work. Choose one. Become an expert. And once you choose one, go deep, deep, deep into the funnel of that one. Learn everything that you can about it. Okay, let me see who's chatting about what. In foundation, remember to include your advanced health directive. Thank you, Diane. Or alternative currencies for Tony. Yeah, got it. All right. So yeah, he is in alternative currencies. You're quite right. So I'm interested to see, and feel free to take a screenshot of this. I'm interested to see, and I'm just going to stop the share here and find out what you're thinking and what this means to you in the game of creating wealth. Let's see what we come up with, as we've got everybody sitting there looking diligently at what we want to talk about. So questions, considerations. Adila, nice to have you on the call. Gavin, nice to have you on the call. Karen, nice to have you on the call. Moira, nice to have you on the call. I think I've said hello to everybody else. Sam, nice to have you on the call. Questions, considerations. What an exciting group. Okay. One message. Andrea, I looked at Forex trading and loved it. But sitting there with every blip going off drove me crazy. That's the type of thing that we learn. Absolutely, 100%. Yep. You realize that that your life has changed in ways in which for you, you're an extremely people-orientated person, Andrea. So by you getting into this would literally kill your soul after about 6 months, because you're not out talking to people.
I love analytics. I love numbers. I love data. But the thought of just sitting there, just watching it go boop, 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 and get excited was just like, just kill me now. Just don't go there. So I realized that equity wasn't a space for me to really play in as a primary.
Yeah, absolutely. And possibly even as a secondary, unless you want to take 4 days a year and sit there for a weekend and watch the Forex screen and make a little bit of money and have some fun, right? That's why they call it playing the stock market. Nobody ever calls it seriously investing in the stock market, right? Karen, not into equity at all, find it utterly boring. Yeah, no, you're a people person as well. Would love to do property renovation and flipping, just requires funding. Well, yes, the people that I know that have got into this and been the most successful have generally had a funding partner. So I'm thinking of two of my very good friends, Sean and Avon in New Zealand. I mean, they basically retired when they were 40. They started at 28, and they had a multi-millionaire who funded them. And their last deal that it was a flipping deal, or they owned it for a year. They bought his biggest hotel he owned off them for 3 million, 30 million rand to you, for $3 million, and sold it for 6 million. So 60 million rand. And that gave them enough money to retire on. So, you know, it's getting a funder in place, and money's everywhere. Just because we may not have what we think at this stage doesn't mean that somebody else doesn't, because there's a lot of people with money who don't have time and they don't have the skills to do it. So just give that some thought. And whenever you do something like that, start with something small and learn the business. All right. Mel, I've realized being a sole trader is risky. I'm vulnerable if I can't deliver for whatever reason, so I need to create a business that doesn't rely on me. Right, so that would move you more into a licensor type of space, where you're creating something that other people will sell on your behalf, or other people will carry out on your behalf. There's no doubt about that. You have other coaches and things like that work under you. That's a very typical model for that type of business. Oh, that's the cat. Okay, are you going to show me a product there? Right? No, you're showing me the cat. Okay, cool. It's a very pretty cat. Andrea says, Eugene Manette have a model to sell products, for selling products, etc. Yes, they do. Absolutely correct. Okay. Anyone else got any feedback? Moira, I see you there. Start as a sole trader and find I have more passion and energy for family business. That's really lovely, right? And I know that talking with Rowder last week, that's family business is one of the biggest growth markets on the planet, right? So that's an interesting thing as well. Philippe, apologies, need to leave early. Cool. Late evening here. Of course it is. Thank you and see you next week. Bye, Philippe. Lovely to have you on the call. We're going to wrap up Anita. You just found your family, Mel, right? Here it is, right? Love us or not, we're all here. And you know, you should take a screenshot and connect with some of the people here you haven't connected with. Gavin, I see you there. Sorry, what?
Can I say something?
Yep,
Me?
certainly, Diane. Hello.
Hi. With the we did a lot of within business, and then of course with property. And what we found with property is that our first property that we bought and then rented and then renovated and then sold on, we did with a business partner. So sometimes you can find, and they were friends. They were looking to invest their money. They didn't have enough. We didn't have enough to actually get the deposit that we needed to then buy the first investment property. So we partnered off with a number of friends. Of course, we had contracts in places. So there was a time then when, you know, I was running 5 properties while I was doing the business at the same time. It was pretty chaotic, but it was well worth it, because what you're doing is you buy, you hang on. And when you sell, it works really well. But, you know, it wasn't necessarily going out and finding finance, except from a bank standard, but we partnered up with friends and business partners that made it a lot easier. So there is a way around it.
And thanks for that. I mean, we do exactly the same thing. We've got a very small syndicate of 4 people, and that's who we invest in property with. So our developments that we're doing, 4 people are involved in that. We own a whole series of apartments in New Zealand. 4 people are involved in that. It spreads the risk, and Landi and I are incredibly inactive in that. In fact, I read the emails probably once a quarter that comes out and tells us what it is. And the only time we got active is when the market crashed, and then I came up with an idea that we're using to move property whilst the market's dead in New Zealand. But apart from that, we've never had to do anything. And we've been doing it with the same 4 people for 5 years now, and it's worked very, very well. And we're just going to continue doing it. So I couldn't agree more with you. Mel, I've invested in other people's property business, had some pounds in it, no time to do my own property, invested in their tips. Yep. It's about finding, thank you. It's about finding the right people and finding somebody who really knows what they're doing, and you have to know that they know what they're doing, and they are just into it, and they'll just do whatever it takes. And that's what you need. So our number one partner in this is actually our accountant, and he's a property specialist. This is what he does all day, every day. And he advises people on property, and he's market researcher. He's got a property show. He's got all that sort of stuff. So, you know, we just sort of go, if Ross is going to bring us something where we're going to probably, it'd take a lot for us to say no to investing in it. Okay. Good, solid proposal. I got my money back with interest. That's what you want. Okay, cool. Gavin, any feedback from you? Nice to see you on the call.
Yeah, I mean, we're still in the acquisition phase of a couple of smaller entities. Biggest challenge we obviously have when looking at acquisitions is evaluation, what the owner believes his business is and what the book says. So we always find getting into those communications, the number starts super high. When we get the realistic number, then that deal falls off the table. So we've got 2 of those we're currently busy with. And then the other avenues, we just basically partnering up with a developer to work on the one side of the business, and we kind of split profits. That's the only way we've really looked into, what do you call it, diversifying.
Yep. And I think thanks for that, because it brings up a point that I'll probably finish up today on, is that for many of us, we think that our business is a very big asset. But you just heard from Gavin here that the person he's buying the business off thinks that their business is a big asset as well, but he doesn't think it's such a big asset. So he's driving the price down, and it's going to come to somewhere between what the guy would actually take if really pushed and what he wants at the top. And it's going to be the same for all of us if we can even find a marketplace for our businesses. And but it doesn't mean to say you don't go and get your business valued and start to understand. That's really good to understand where the value of your business is. It's really good to understand what's restricting your business from having more value as well. And it's always got to be a win-win. Yeah, you know, I'm a great believer in always leave some money on the table for the next person. If you do that, then it creates good karma. Folks, that's the basis of wealth creation today. And it's about really understanding yourself. Then it's about having those passive things solidified. And then it's about choosing one active stream. You know, Philippe signed off early, but I would say that I've only met one person in my whole life who could do 3 streams actively well. One person. Most people who start to move into a second active stream lose focus on one of the 2 streams and end up losing money on one of them. So try and stick as best as you can with the stream that you love. We're in business. We choose to make our money through business and save and grow it through property. We're not unaware of the equity markets, but we do that through managed funds and KiwiSaver, because that's what we do. And to be frank, that's just money we throw away and look for it later on down the track. But our property is relatively active, if you can call looking at a report 3 or 4 times a year active, but business is active every single day. So I think that's what you need to do. You need to focus on one thing, and you need to decide what that one thing is. Okay, glad you've had a good time. Thanks for the positive feedback. We'll see you all later. Have a wonderful week, and we'll catch you around. Bye.